flat planes? Or is it maybe like the original Fiat Multipla, a car designed to be willfully ugly so that you would love it for the same reason everybody loved the Elephant Man? Otherwise, you'd have to see it as, well, an electric pickup truck, which is what it is. And it's big. Even by American standards, with their enthusiasm for trucks, it's pretty big. It's very wide. It's sort of cool, though, isn't it? On the face of it, this is a very simple shape. You can imagine making a little model of this out of folded paper. If you look at something like that Dodge Ram over there, that's full of very complicated shapes, compound curves and so on. It's a very, very involved bit of tooling. But once you've made the tooling, obviously you can bang them out in the hundreds of thousands. We know that the engineers found this very difficult to do. I mean, I think it's got quite a happy face, which I like. The flatness means that it has to be very, very precisely made, because the curves of a car like that or that Mercedes disguise any imperfections. But if you look here very closely, this piece here on the A pillar, that doesn't align absolutely perfectly. It's only a millimetre or so out, but you can see that because it's a straight line and a flat surface. It's also got quite sharp edges. I mean, look at that. I wouldn't want to be hit by it. I mean, I wouldn't want to be hit by any car, but especially not that one, because, well, it's a corner. You don't really get corners on the fronts of cars normally, but you do there. It's also a festival of fingerprints, if you're neurotic about that sort of thing. And if you're a YouTuber, very difficult to film, because pretty much wherever you stand, you can see yourself. It's like a hall of mirrors. I mean, let's be honest, Tesla are making a bit of a point with the Cybertruck. If they really believed this was the future of car design, they'd make their other cars look like this, and they don't. They're all very inoffensive and conventional. But I do wonder if this styling would look fantastic on something smaller, something about the size of a Ford Focus, a Fiat Panda. I mean, in some ways, the original Fiat Panda was a bit like this. It was a bit ruler and pencil. There is something else to consider with things that are supposedly flat. Now, if we go back to Rolls-Royce, when they used to solder their own radiator grills together by hand, the blokes who did that knew that they had to actually make them very slightly bulbous, because if you make things perfectly flat, especially when they're shiny, they appear to be slightly shrunken, slightly deflated. So I'm curious to know exactly how flat this is, and for that, it would be very convenient if somebody had, I don't know, a steel rule. There you go. Now the bonnet, very obviously, has a bit of a curve to it. Very obviously that does as well. But what about the flanks? This door. Oh yes, you see, it is very, very slightly convex. Very, very slightly convex that way. Oh, that one's almost completely flat. Very slightly convex. Flat. Slightly convex. Flat. Very slightly convex. You see, I think they thought about this very carefully. They knew if they just made it as a folded cardboard design, it would look pinched and weird and the reflections would be all wrong. They knew to make it slightly, I think the word is, oblate. What I think we should do here, though, is abandon all the design language rubbish and just take a moment to stand and look at it and decide if I actually like it. Yes, I do. It's not on sale in the UK. It's not on sale in Europe. I don't even know if it's allowed in Europe, but it's definitely allowed here. There's an amendment about it that's been added to the American Constitution. You have the right to bear arms and to drive a Cybertruck. I suppose technically the most radical thing about the Cybertruck is that it is entirely steer-by-wire. There is no physical connection between this and what the front wheels are doing. It's essentially a computer interpreting what you want to do and then doing it for you. It's not actually the first steer-by-wire car, but it's the first to be entirely steer-by-wire with no mechanical backup. And if you sit and think about that a bit, it's quite alarming. This is not connected, not in the sense that we normally mean, with the wheels doing the steering. On the other hand, those linkages that we're so used to can't wear out. And this car can do quite clever things like steer all four wheels, have a very tight turning circle for one so big, and require very small and gentle inputs, which is why it has, well, we'd have to call this a steering yoke rather than a steering wheel. This makes you feel very good because you can pretend you're flying an airliner. What a pleasant view. I think the clever thing that Tesla have done is to reassess what might be important to people in a car, and even identify things that people didn't recognize as being important. I don't think people just buy them because they think, oh, it's green transport. It's also because the things that matter are given precedence. So they're easy to drive, they're quiet, they're connected. You can fuel them at home. Something I would just like to say about the Cybertruck is it's got the quietest electric windows I've ever encountered. Look at that. I think that's probably better than an S-Class. Road markings in America are written, the ones that are actually on the road surface, I mean, in the order in which you pass them so that they read correctly. So it says PED crossing, which is PED X ING, but I always read them top to bottom. So to me that says zing ped. One just there said ahead stop. Well, a couple of criticisms have emerged from other people. One is an old boy who came up to me in the car park just now, and he says he doesn't like this single light bar on the front because when a Cybertruck is coming towards you, it's difficult to judge how far away it is. With two lights, obviously, they are closer together the further away the car is. He says this is confusing. The other complaint has come from Lucy on the camera, who says that these largely flat, shiny surfaces produce fantastic glare. And my criticism is that these pillars are quite fat. That's not a unique Cybertruck problem, but they're quite fat and very badly positioned for the view at junctions and when you're going around, for example, a left-hand bend. That actually obscures your view of the road. But never mind that. Look at the size of the windscreen wiper. It's huge. Look, they put a wiper on and then they thought, no, we need another wiper on the wiper. And there it is. I'll be honest with you, I don't want a Cybertruck. It's too big. I have a slight aversion to pickup trucks, if I'm honest, but I can't help but like it because it's a bit like a Tesla. It's a bit challenging of conventions. It makes you think about it. But the bit that I really like is that it's all straight lines, flat surfaces, vertices, but it makes everything else look square. I mean, it is a little bit childish and a bit incel Cybertruck, but for the most part, it's like a Tesla. It's got the big screen in the middle, rather like my Tesla Model 3 Highland has. And I'm in two minds about screens. They're great because they declutter the car, they feel modern, you can reconfigure them and all that sort of thing. And most of the stuff on there is set and forget. But it remains true that to say alter the temperature, you have to look and touch things if you're not going to use the voice control. And it just isn't the same as reaching for a knob that you can feel and turning it, like in, say, an old BMW 3 Series. My reasons for wanting to drive the Cybertruck are twofold. Firstly, I wanted to drive the Cybertruck. Secondly, I wanted to try and shoehorn into this presentation a rather fatuous promotion for my gin, James Gin, which brings us conveniently to the load bay, or what I think in pickup trucks is called the bed. Come and see. There are two little buttons here which do interesting things. This one is the tailgate. I didn't ask you to lock. There are some interesting buttons here, the first of which opens the tailgate. You load it like a conventional boot or trunk if you're in America. But then there is this, the tonneau, which opens thusly. Rather nice. That covers it in normal use so that whatever you're carrying doesn't get stolen. Now this